took a very early morning guided tour to the chapel in the Vatican.
Okay, yeah.
And
San Pietro.
Yeah, and the 16th, what do you call it? 16? The 16th chapel.
Cappella Sistina.
See. And we were only 8 people there in the morning.
Wow.
I mean, it was 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was
so
great.
Nice.
Yeah, and we went to the chapel as well before everybody came. So we saw everything before 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took the Piazza Navone and the thing Trevi Fontana and the Spanish.
Yeah, of course.
All the things, yeah.
Did you throw the coin in the Trevi fountain?
No. You're not allowed. I mean, you're not allowed to do anything.
Really? You're not allowed anymore?
No.
Okay.
No. Don't sit. Don't stand. 50 euro. I mean, it's expensive. If you get a fine if you sit down or if you throw something.
I didn't know it. There is a common speech in Italian that is that says "look but don't look."
Yeah.
So it was kind of the same with the Fontana Trevi. Look but don't look, because otherwise you got fined.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's a very interesting town because you can walk to most of it. I mean we walk a lot when we travel. So it's just walking, and just getting everything, getting the sense of the town, right? Mm-hmm. So we're coming back.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Mm-hmm. And we were saying before that.
Pardon?
We were saying before that you actually played Berlusconi in theater. And this is a first question, but why first? And then
because the dramatist I work a lot with, she's an American dramatist.
Yeah.
Living in Denmark. She started in 2011. We did our first production. She wrote me a play called Hitler on the Roof. Yeah, where I played Joseph Goebbels. And I remember the evening she called me and said, "You know what? I think you should play Joseph Goebbels." I was laughing. And then I said, "Okay, why not?" And it took about a year before she was finished. But it was really interesting going into these powerful men as a female actress. And it was a great success. And it brought me somewhere. It brought me another place as an artist. So she wanted to do a performance or show about Berlusconi because it's the same mechanism in power. Not quite, but
in other ways, because it was two historical periods very different from each other.
Yes, but it's the use of the media, and it's the use of fake news, which is so relevant right now. But it was fake news when Goebbels started out. He was called the first world spin doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? And I mean, Berlusconi had a whole television channel on papers and using the media as well.
Yeah, there is.
So there was a connection between these two guys. Therefore, I said, okay, can I play Goebbels? Can I play Berlusconi? Well, I played Goebbels. I can try. And they were very different. I mean,
of course,
Goebbels was very introverted and very angry, and Berlusconi is
totally outside.
Charming guy. Yeah. So yeah, I do like these challenges. When somebody challenged me, I say, okay.
Why not?
Why not? Of course, you can always fail, and you do once in a while. But that's what being an artist.
That's the challenge.
Exactly.
Of course.
Exactly.
And how did you approach a male character? Because for your interpretation of Joseph Goebbels, you won actually 2 prizes the Romert Prize and the Laurensens Fons Waun Prize. So I was just curious, how do you approach a character so far
from myself?
From you?
It's very physical. I work with my head and my body, and I don't think about these characters as men. I mean, they have very straightforward male ways of doing things, but it comes. I mean, it's in the body, and when I get it in the body, I start being able to acting it further out.
Okay.
So it's. I think we worked on the floor for a month, Ria and I, when we did Goebbels. I mean, just exploring the whole body of the character and his limb and his physical. I mean, he wasn't very comfortable physically. I mean, he was small like I am. So it kind of sticks in his head. I mean, you stick your mind into his mind, and it was difficult. It was difficult to be able to defend a character.
Yeah, of
Goebbels.
course.
And you have to.
Yeah, it's always difficult to defend a character such evil as it is.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I remember the first time we did it for an audience, and I was in full, uniform and Nazi and everything, and I was so. There was a kind of door, an opening in the script, that his love for his children, that was where he had his soft spot.
Yes.
And I kind of clinged to that because I had to have something that I found sympathetic.
Yeah.
But when I first met the audience, I went home to my father. I said, I can't play this man because I can really feel the audience at some point really like him.
Okay.
They feel sympathy for him. And my father, who was a very clever man, said, well, that's because you describe him as a person, as a whole human being.
Of course.
And that's the dangerous part. You can't just make him a monster, because if it was that easy,
yes,
this is just a monster. I mean, there was no danger to it. We could just, take out all the monsters and kick them out or lock them up. But these are real people. So it was really something that told me, well, I have to go in as an actor. I have to create a whole character and defend the person, even if I sincerely hate it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because if you work only on the evil side, there is the risk to make a stereotype.
Exactly.
But as an actor, you have to, of course, to defend your character, to understand him or her completely, or at least try to.
I remember in Berlusconi, I was in Italy the summer before we started, and I bought a book about the language of the hands and fingers, and I had, a kind of a book I could always tell when he says this. I don't remember what it was, but it kind of so also nice. Again getting into the body of the character, and then this guy was just really he was charming, and he was really masculine. And he was really onto the women.
Yeah.
So you have to find this libido, and you have to find this masculine.
Yeah, of course, and that's really interesting because you played also other scenic portraits in theater, apart from Joseph Goebbels and Berlusconi. And where do you start as actress to work on a character that has a specific image, a specific way of movement, and also a specific tone of voice? Because when we as actors work on a character that is written in a play, but there is only an imaginative character, we are in a certain way more free to just put our things, our own interpretation. But when you just approach a character that has a specific image, you have really to adapt yourself really, really much to him or to her.
But you always have the liberty. You always have the artistic liberty to put something or increase a special thing in the character or take it away, and it's especially when you do living or people who has lived. I mean, you have to find something. You have to find one thing that is really, that you kind of increase or maximize.
That you amplify.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And actually, I mean, Goebbels, it was much the limp, and that limp kind of, I played it for really long.
Okay.
And that limp still is in my body.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it actually, it actually do some really harm to my foot and my body. I'm still working on it, and I'm still limping.
Okay.
Just a tiny bit when people know me. But it's also, maybe it's in the voice. I played a Danish actress called Marguerite Viby, who was a very big star, a huge icon for comedy and revue. And she was, I mean, she had a very light voice, and she was doing this, and she was always doing this. And I actually, in the same season, I played her in Goebbels.
Okay.
Who was, and I almost spoiled my voice as well. So you really have to, I mean, I learned a lot from that, because you really have to prepare your body for going into another body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And which is the element that works for you most in this kind of work? Do you start from only from the body? Do you start maybe from the tone of voice? Do you start maybe with an emotional image?
Yeah,
or?
It's also emotional, of course. Again, the Goebbels thing, I really got the idea of this man when I saw a television documentary on his, he was writing poetry. And it was Kenneth Branagh who was reading his poetry, and it was so pretentious. And it was so bad poetry. I kind of got, wow, this is really an artist that hasn't become the artist he wanted to be. I mean, this is revenge.
Yeah.
And this is so pathetic and so, overrated. He was just seeing himself as a messiah, right? And that kind of way of thinking of yourself and behaving and just being really comfortable in whatever you say. That was really the key for me.
Okay.
And that's a psychological thing. Yeah.
Of course. But that's sort of a trait d'union for the Nazi, because also Hitler was a failed artist in a certain way.
Yeah.
There is a very interesting.
I don't know what Berlusconi wanted to be. He was just. He was a singer.
He actually started singing on the ships. Actually, yeah. So maybe.
Well, who knows?
There is some failed artist in every politician, every dictator.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and there is a very interesting Italian play by a very famous Italian playwright that is called Edoardo Erba, and it was about what if Hitler was admitted to the art academy instead of being rejected.
What would have happened?
Yes, and the interesting thing, in my opinion, of course, was that Hitler became a famous artist and known in all Germany, but actually, in the end, the seed of the evil was, of course, inside him. So at the end, he ended by killing another Jew, and that was his masterpiece. He said in the play.
Wow.
Yeah, the killing.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Has it only been on stage in Italy or what?
Sorry? Yeah, it has been on stage in Italy, and it was really
powerful.
Really powerful, really touching. Before actually, this is, of course, there is a limit between what is art objectively and what is art personally, because especially in the 19th century, it has become very personal what art can be, what art can represent.
Well, right now you're discussing Peter Hanke and his Nobel Prize in literature. And what is the art and what is the ideology? You know, I mean, what is your political way of seeing things, and how does it affect your art? What is what? I'm not sure you can actually divide it into two things.
Yeah, of course.
That's also a part of history. Leni Riefenstahl, in our Hitler on the Roof, Leni Riefenstahl was the second character. And the question was, I mean, she always claimed she didn't know anything. She was only making the art. I mean, she was 102, I think, when she died, and she wouldn't admit that she actually knew what was happening around her. And it is. I mean, when you look at her documentaries, I mean, it is extremely well. I mean, it's well produced. It's so beautiful and it's so artistic. But I mean, it tells a story, and it has a certain angle.
Yeah, of course.
So of course you have to. That's also. I mean, you have to use your voice, and you use your voice when you're an artist, and that is kind of what I have learned for the past maybe 10 years. That I haven't. I mean, my voice is an artistic voice, but it is a voice as well as yours and this guy who's sitting over there. And we all have the voice, and we are living in a democracy, and we have to use our voice in the in the world, and just telling people what we need and what we want. And that's kind of what I really think a lot about as an artist.
Okay.
Right now, to tell the stories that really talks into the world's dilemmas, and that's also with the performance I'm doing now, the Yope, A Simple Man, which is a performance about. It's based on a novel from 1930.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but it is about a man who immigrates from Russia to New York, Manhattan. And it is about the way a simple man can meet and do meet a new world, a new culture, a new language. I mean, there's a lot of people walking around the world right now, and they have to face a totally new way of living. And we always talk about quotas and how many and from where and how do we get them out again and how can we get them in and integration and all that. But I mean, the man who has to face all these challenges. I mean, how do they think? What do they do?
Of course.
Is it that easy?
No.
As we always say, oh, come on, you can just start working and you can learn a language, Marco. Get going. It's very difficult. I think it's a very good story to tell right now. It's not judgmental, and it's not political in the way, but it tells a story about a simple man who has to face the challenge that many people faces right now.
Of course.
And that's that gives me some content as an artist to be able to bring on that history.
Of course.
That story to a lot of people.
Because it's very, very important issue nowadays. Every artist want to talk about migration, but the very difficult thing is just to bring heart, but to talk about migration by not to talk about migration, to take it from another perspective.
Yeah, and make art.
Yes.
Because I'm an artist. I mean, I don't write. I actually try to write, debates and columns and everything in newspapers, but they won't take them because I'm probably not very good at it. But I mean, when I am on stage, I know what I'm doing because I'm an artist. And then people can agree or not agree.
Of course.
I mean, I don't work or play to everybody agreeing the same thing as I do or thinking the same thing, but I'm trying to make a dialogue with the audience about things that really matters for me and is essential in the world right now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And because also I read that your family you used to talk a lot about politics. Your family you were very passionate about politics, and this is something that we can see also in your performances and your project. For example, Hitler on the Roof, and also the project Rosenbaum.
Oblivion, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you like to talk about politics in theater? Is it a matter of making political satire, or do you use politics as a metaphor to talk about normal people, to take another perspective, or?
In the project that I'm working, that that takes most of the time right now. That's the project Oblivion.
Oblivion.
Yeah, because we tend to. There's a lot of bad things. I mean, there's a lot of bad stories and cases that comes from our parliament, and it's very high focused on for a while in the media, and then everybody forgets it.
Mm-hmm.
I forget. I mean, I can't find out who is what is right and what is wrong. So I kind of said, and we have a expression in Danish that says that we put it into the book of Oblivion.
Okay.
So that's why it's called the Glemmebogen.
I got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I try to open that book and take out chapters and put them on stage in a way with satire and documentary and drama and art and music. And I work with the journalists. I work with journalists who have spent years writing and researching
of course.
on the matter. On the matter. And I've done 2 performances, and I've come to make a format where you do a performance. I mean, highly artistic. I mean, that the art again is the first thing. But then you kind of make an overview of the matter, with all the figures and all the laws things and all the who said what, and we play all the characters, and it's really funny and entertaining. And then in the second act, I have a journalist on stage and invite a special guest.
A real journalist on stage.
A real journalist. And I invite a special guest who has an angle on the matter. Sometimes it's one who has been playing a part in the matter. And then they're doing an interview, and then they go into a dialogue with the audience.
Nice.
So
very interesting.
It's highly interesting. And when I experienced it the first time, I was saying, wow, the theater can actually be something else.
Yeah.
It can expand into a space for a democratic dialogue. And I mean, and I'm really trying to get people in, guests who have different views. I mean, it's
of
not
course, because
different
we are in
views
democracy.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to get some. Somebody who will really fight for it, but it was right. The minister did right, or even if there's 100 people in the theater says no, it wasn't right. Yeah, it was right. So there can be a kind of respectful dialogue.
Of course.
And that's why it's important or interesting that it's hindsight, that you have to look back and you can kind of maybe learn something from what happened 3, 5, 10 years ago. Next time we're in the same position. So I'm kind of experimenting with what I call the interacting or interfering theater.
Okay.
How can
I like this definition, interfering theater.
Yeah, how can the theater interfere with reality? And I really have really gotten through to a lot of politicians, a lot of media, a lot of journalists who can't get their material further out. They have been on television, they have written books, they have made documentaries, and now it's just closed. And then I opened the book.
The Oblivion book.
Yes, let's have a look again. And they really want to work along. So they're in the creation, they're working along with the artists in the creation of the script.
Okay.
And attending rehearsals as well, having discussions with the artists, and they're part of kind of the project.
Nice, so
yeah,
nice.
It's
and it's very interesting because especially nowadays there is, I think, a huge problem with keeping the memory of what happened, because once people were just more used to read books, to learn history, to remember history. Now we are constantly bombed with news, and most of them are fake news, of course. So most of the people can just not distinguish the two levels. Exactly. You have to make really a huge effort to just clean over all the fake news to find something that is concrete.
Yeah, and that's why I do it, because I'm confused myself. I'm really confused, and that's why you started out by talking about how I was brought up. I mean, it wasn't a political home. It wasn't my parents weren't actively political, but they were aware.
Yes,
they were awake.
Yeah, that's how everybody should be, because politics is not just a matter of politicians. Everybody has to be aware of the politics, because we have to contribute.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has to contribute to the politics.
Yeah. So I kind of found a way of, right now, anyway, these years, I kind of found a way of making the transition. From how I was brought up to just to put it into my art and say, okay, let's make an experiment here.
And how is it working?
It is. I mean, I must say that now it was the second one, and the second one we did this spring, and it was very interesting and very important. I had the ex-prime minister as my consultant, and he was on stage, and I really had the ex-finance minister as well. I mean, we really had some really good people around me, and it works very well. Now I'm on the pre-production phase of the next performance. That's about Denmark being part of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Sorry.
And that is also, I mean, there's been a huge talk about, was it legal, the war, the American English. And that's
when you touch the Oblivion book of that's part of the world, you can just take a huge amount of problems and
But that's actually
and
what
contrasts.
I'm trying to do, a very music dramatic performance of that, with 3 women. And then the second act will be a historian, journalist as a moderator as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
A musical performance.
Yes.
A musical performance.
Yes, I have a rapper, actually a really cool guy who also studied politics for many years, and he writes music and he writes lyrics. Rap lyrics.
Rap lyrics.
Yeah. Nice. So that's going to be in February 21.
Okay.
The opening Copenhagen.
Nice. Yes, and this is because music, I read that is a huge part of your story, because your father was also a musician. Your son is also a musician. He plays piano, and you, I can say, you sing amazingly well.
Thank you.
Yes, I saw a video of both you and your sister singing. It was amazing.
Yeah. Was that from the European Song Contest?
Yes,
thank you.
Exactly. It was amazing.
I was 18. Yes.
And I was just curious, does the music influence your work both as director and as actress? And if yes, in which way does the music influence your work?
For me, music is a really nice frame. It's a really nice language that I'm very familiar with.
Okay.
And it's when I direct, I always try to merge words with music, because it talks to the emotions in a very different way than words can talk. It gives me a frame of the performance to work into, and it's very natural. It's very natural, and I think it's important when you have a lot of really difficult. That's why I'm making a musical performance, this one, because there are a lot of words. There's a lot of law. There's a lot of figures. There's a lot of people. There's a lot, and if you can kind of condense it into something that is very sharp and very clear to understand, then it can mix between dialogue and musical dialogue.
Okay.
So that's the experiment.
So
I never do the same performance. I mean, every matter has its own cynical or dramatic format.
Of course.
That's what I think is very important.
So you think that sometimes a music or a song is more effective to communicate something than other words?
Yeah, definitely. That's why all the musical theatres, they earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
But and sometimes you can really feel what they want. I mean, when they sing, and sometimes it's just nice music.
Yeah.
But it is a really interesting language to work in.
Okay.
And it's very natural because I was brought up with music. So yeah.
And do you use also music, not strictly music, but singing, also maybe to work on a specific, I don't know, tone of voice for maybe some characters? No. Actually,
and I never listen to music at home, actually.
Really?
Never. It's really weird.
That's particular.
Yeah, that's really weird. No, I don't listen to that much music. Yeah, when I go to concert, my son, who is a brilliant composer and pianist, I mean, he has opened my eyes for a lot of different genres, and my husband is a music as well. He's a bass player.
Yeah, he's a bassist.
Yeah, so I mean, I get music from but when I'm alone at home,
you want just silence.
Silence. Yes, actually. Yeah.
I can understand, I think. Yeah.
I really like the silence.
Yes, but that's also because nowadays we are constantly bombed with music. When you go to a supermarket, you hear music. When you go to public space, you hear music.
Yeah.
There is maybe this, I don't know, fear, this general fear of silence.
Exactly.
But in theater, silence is so important.
Yeah.
There was Pinter, for example, used to say that a good dramaturgy is fulfilling the pauses between two kind of silences. So I was a master, of course, in doing that. But
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
That's very interesting. You work also with your son in creating shows and performances.
We did 4 years ago.
Because he is graduated in USA.
He works in Denmark. He works in America as well. And we did a performance about the Danish very, very famous writer called P.H. Hensen. Actually, it was about his mother. That's where I started the performance, because she was a writer, and she wasn't a women's lib woman, but she was very forward. She was very first in doing things and living her life and being an artist. So I actually I've been reading her books since I was 19. So I wanted to do a performance about her. Then I kind of wanted to use his songs. And then when I started researching, I couldn't part them, because he was very influenced by her. And she was actually also influenced by him. So it was kind of a cooperation. And then I asked my son to be the MD and make the music or form an orchestra with where he comes from, the jazz, the rhythmical world, and then we made this performance, which was, I mean, I love to work with him. He's very good, and I've always known that he would be a great guy to work with in theater, but I didn't want to use him first. So
yeah, of course.
I waited a couple of years until he'd worked with Peter Langdale a lot, another Danish director, and then I said, okay, now it's my turn. And I actually just directed a play in Vendsyssel Teater, where I used his music, where we worked together as well. He's brilliant, yeah. And it's not easy, and it's never easy to work with family. I've done that. I've worked with my sister and my father and my son. But as long as you have this respect, and you really have to respect what you can bring to the table.
Of course.
And that is so easy for me to respect his skills. So yes, I would love to do more.
And also, you are. I could read from your biography, from your career, that you are very versatile in the performing arts world, because you not only perform in theater, but you also performed in a lot of revue.
Yeah.
I don't know how actually to translate it in English. How would you call it? Revue.
Specs. It's a Danish-Swedish art form actually. And revue, I think it's from the French, right? You look back on the year that has gone, and you make humor and satire.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've really been doing my revue jobs. And that's where I started. Actually, I had a debut in a revue where I played the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister.
Anker Jørgensen. Yes. It's about humor. It's about standing in front of an audience and not being afraid of your audience.
Of course.
And just be there and timing.
Yes.
Because you get immediately.
There is kind of a science of timing.
And immediately you get the reaction. So that's why revue is so interesting. And I've been doing a lot all around the country. I've been the leader of Young Revue, and I've kind of done that. So when I thought I need to develop my skills from the revue, then I started doing the project of revue, because it's a stretched way of working with humor and satire, and it's much more dangerous and important. But I also think that the revues of Denmark can be very, very important.
Yeah, of course.
But there is a limit to what you can put into it.
Yeah, of course.
It's an art form which has very narrow limits.
Yeah, and you also performed in television, for example, in a TV series in Poland. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's an angry woman. Yeah.
And is there an element, or there can be something your daily practice or something your work that it's the same in all these kinds of performing, because both theater, revue, and working from television are very different. But is there something in your practice that you bring every time in every sort of style?
There is one. I've also taught a lot. I've been teaching a lot on the. I was 7 years drama teacher at the Royal Academy of Opera. So, and when you start teaching, you know that because you teach yourself, and you really have to define what are my tools.
Yeah, of course.
As an artist, and the thing that presence is kind of the thing, and the not being afraid, and the lack of fear, and the lack of what do you call it? Vanity.
Vanity, yeah.
It's very important. It's very important if you want to be funny. You can be in vain. You have to exclude all vanity. And I'm a woman, and I know how I want to look nice and all that. But when I'm on stage, I really don't think about it. And I don't care.
Okay.
And I'm not scared for my audience. And that's kind of what makes these three things: presence and lack of vanity. And
I read this is one of your father's teaching. It was him too that taught you not to be afraid of the audience.
Yeah, and you are once in a while you say, Or of course, we all experience standing in front of people who just say, "What the fuck is that?" I'm sorry. But I mean, stand on your feet and just be there and play the moment. That's kind of the best thing you can teach people, and it's not easy. It sounds so easy.
No,
it's
not
easy. It's not easy,
not at all.
And it has very much to do with just the ongoing process of learning who you are and how you are together with people and all of that.
The image that you want to give to the other people.
I'm 60 now, and I haven't finished learning. So, but on stage, I really like to be on stage, and I really love audience, and I like the.
That's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I like the
relationship.
Yeah, and the unspoken dialogue, and my ear is always out. How do they breathe? What's going on in this space and all that? And I'm playing at it all the time.
Nice. And one last thing, you have a career that has lasted many years.
Yes, I was very young when I came out.
And is there? How has the Danish theater environment and the Danish theater market also changed in all these years? If has changed, in your opinion?
It's very difficult for me to say, because when I came out from the finest drama school in Denmark.
In Denmark.
Yes. I thought, okay, here I am. We all thought we were great talents, of course. That's what we were taught.
You are here to break the world just after, and then maybe.
And I kind of thought that there would be somebody who would care for a talent, saying, okay, I can see you have this and this, you need to learn this and this. Why don't you go? I mean, somebody had the responsibility, took the responsibility of the new talents. Nobody did.
Yeah.
Nobody did. I mean, really. There's no, I don't think there is a consideration for how to bring up talents and how to nurse talents. And maybe there shouldn't be, I don't know. Everybody has to work for themselves and fight and all that. But that was really, that was a revelation for me when I, maybe after 5-7 years, thought, wow, nobody cares. And,
nobody cares.
Yeah, really. It was very accidental. I mean, it's you get a part, and that was because I was partying with you the other day and talking to this guy.
I mean,
there's not a line you can follow. And when I actually really found out, I think it was 10 years after, it came as it was also a liberty to say, okay, I have to form my career myself. And I actually started to produce almost the year after I came out from school, because I didn't want to wait.
Yeah, of course.
I couldn't wait till somebody called me. I was just saying, hey, I want to do something.
Yeah.
I know how to produce, because I knew from my father.
Of course.
I was brought up at a home where he always made his own platforms. So I kind of knew how to do it and got better and better. So I kind of formed my own satellite in this environment. And of course I interact with theatres. I'm going to Odense Theatre next year. I'm asked to direct a play and all that. I'm very happy. I'm very content. But I had some years where I thought, okay, I will do what I think is funny, what I think is challenging, and I will do what I can to support my son, because I brought him up. So I had to earn money, right?
Yeah, to afford the life, basically.
Yeah. But I didn't want to think strategically, if I go to this, then I get a part and all that. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't work. You can't assume that because you
can
talk,
predict that.
No. And that was the big lesson for me. And I don't know if it should be like that. Maybe we should be more concerned about how we nurse our talents and how we give parts to people. My father, he was he was so good at spotting talents. It was part of his production. He always spotted talents, took them from the schools, and made productions. And that was really a talent. It's a talent.
And he did the same to you? Because at the beginning you wanted to be a journalist, actually.
Yeah, and he said, you should be an...
You should be an actor.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try.
That's true.
If you say it that day, okay.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know if it's changed. Actually, there are more actors, there are more unemployment, and there are less money. I mean, politically, the arts are really being... How can I say it nicely? No.
If there is a way to say it nicely.
No, but we are very dependent on private foundations.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And thank God there are private foundations. I think it's important to support arts. But politically, there are not a big understanding for arts. And wanting to use it for anything or finding it important, unfortunately. Not now. Not before. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, you come to a country, I don't know how it is in Italy.
It is very, very bad.
Yes.
But because, of course, Italy is much larger than Denmark, there are many, many people. And but basically, what I love in Denmark, well, compared to Italy, of course, maybe you have another opinion about it, but what I love in Denmark is that the public system works very well.
Better than in Italy.
Yes, exactly. In Italy, public system just something impossible, really impossible. So everybody has to create his or her own way in this crazy world, and it means a lot of self-production. So I just pay with my money, with my wallet to do things, and so there are a lot of artists that just continue paying also theaters to be admitted in some theater season, just because if they say, if I stop, I have to change life, and there is this kind of very, very bad system that does not support artists, but because there are so many artists, but also because in Italy there is a social system that privileges culturally humanistic degrees. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but for example, there are not so many people that are willing to graduate themselves as a plumber or an electrician. So because there is this horrible prejudice in Italy that if you work as an electrician or some job that requires your hands, you're just disgrace the person. Yeah, exactly. If you want to be recognized in Italian society, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an actor, you have to be a physician.
So artists are in that group.
Yeah, and artists are in that group, but this causes, of course, a huge problem, because we have a huge amount of artists or other people that proclaims themselves artists without being them strictly, but that's how it is. And but actually nowadays there can be a lot of possibilities using, for example, technology. Nowadays, for example, there are YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and somebody, not everybody, of course, can find his or her own way in that direction. And of course it's a compromise, but maybe they can be amazing new art expression that doesn't exist before.
It's a new art form coming up. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. YouTubers, I mean, they can be very artistic. And I was doing a web series a while ago. And they start, no money, no, would you, come on. I mean, let's just do it. And then the year after, that web series ended on Danmarks Radio, and then they made another season. And so you have to challenge the new technology, of course. course you have to try a way.
Yes.
But yeah, and of course you have a point there that I mean, we still have an art council that subsidizes, that supports theaters and projects like mine. I spend really many hours applying for money.
Yeah, that's the most annoying part in this work.
Yeah, I mean, it's an art form itself, actually. And
yes. You're right, that's an art form itself.
Yeah, and it's
to be able to...
Yeah, to put yourself up to that every time. I know when I come to May, and I have to apply, and always, I mean, also, I really spend a lot of time doing that. So you always have to ask yourself, why do you do it?
Exactly.
Is it important?
This, on the other side, can be a really good exercise because it can clarify your ideas.
I have that several times in a year. Okay, nobody asks me to do it, so why do I do it? And I really have to be very, very clear about it, because if I'm not clear about it, I won't be able to write the applications. So it's a weird life. It's a really weird kind of life. Yeah, yeah. And when it works and you've been working, it takes me about 2 years from the idea to maybe rehearsal start or opening night in the Book of Oblivion. Because it has to be really thoroughly researched and produced. But I mean, when you get to the point where you're actually in front of I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge. It's so nice. I'm so tired, but it's so nice.
It's so nice.
So of course, I mean, you have to have these feelings once in a while to feed all the work, feed all the will to do it.
Okay. I think.
You've been around my life. You know everything about me now.
Yeah, 52 minutes.
Wow, that was a lot.
It was very interesting. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.